So you're getting ready to pack up your whole family and your whole life, and you're still asking yourself, should we rent or buy when moving to San Antonio? It's a huge decision for a lot of families that are relocating to San Antonio, and I feel like it's also a subject that a lot of people just don't get enough information on before they have to make decision. As a relocation specialist, I frequently help families navigate the decision on whether it's better for them to rent or buy when moving to San Antonio. So today I'm taking you through some real life scenarios and outcomes, both positive and negative, that some of my clients have been through that can hopefully help give you some perspective and help make your decision a little easier. And don't worry, I'm not here to lecture you about how you absolutely should buy a home right now. Even though my audience is typically families that are moving or PCSing to San Antonio, all of this can be relevant to you if you're in the middle of making this decision, no matter where you are or where you're moving to, so keep watching. I'm actually out showing 2 homes today while I'm talking to y'all. I'm doing some virtual showings for a client family that is moving to San Antonio early 2025, and their dilemma is actually what inspired me to do this video while I'm filming video for their potential future home. And this scenario is probably really similar to what a lot of you are currently facing while you're planning your move. Let me start by saying there are typically 3 big scenarios that people are really weighing out when they're deciding whether it's better to rent or buy when moving to a new area. Is it better to rent until I get to know the San Antonio area? Now, this particular family that I'm working with, this is the exact question, and honestly, the number one question that they had when they first contacted me about their move to San Antonio. The husband and wife were divided on this one issue. She thought that financially it made sense for them to buy and that they could figure out the area with my help and with their research. She wanted to get their kids established in their schools and not have to move them around later if they rent first and then buy a home in a year or two. He thought that they should rent for a year or two so that they could explore more while they were here and then decide where they wanted to buy. He was afraid of making the wrong choice and regretting it later, which is totally understandable. And because of their tight timeline and the holidays coming up, they aren't able to come visit any areas ahead of time in person, so everything that we're doing is completely virtual. Now, I'll give you guys the condensed version of what happened to get to the point of how we're now shopping for their home to buy instead of rent. Even though it may seem like there are so many options to decide where to live in San Antonio, after one conversation with them, we were able to narrow it down to 2 main areas that would actually work for them that met all of their needs and most of their wants. Out of those 2 areas, there were 4 neighborhoods that had the type of home that they wanted that was also in their ideal price range. So I spent time with them on FaceTime, driving through the areas and the neighborhoods, and they had one clear favorite that stood out above all the others that they both agreed on, and now we're looking at homes. They're both happy and confident with this decision, and it really did just make sense for them. Does it always end up that easy? No, not always, but most of the time it does. Now, renting a home can seem like a great way to test the waters, especially if you're new to the San Antonio area and getting to know all the areas. There are so many different communities, neighborhoods, and suburbs of San Antonio that it can be very overwhelming when you're trying to decide where to live. Maybe you love the thought of living in a rural town with larger home sites, but the appeal of the more family-oriented communities and highly rated school systems make more sense for you, and you just can't decide which one you prefer right now because you're too stressed with moving across the country as it is. Renting lets you try before you buy, so you don't feel rushed into a decision that you're afraid of regretting later. I really do understand how overwhelming it can be to move to a new city and feel unsure about where you want to be. But instead of renting just because you don't know the area well, a relocation specialist, and I don't mean just me, but whomever it is that you choose, can help you get to know San Antonio in a deeper way by getting to know your family's needs and help you find those areas and neighborhoods of San Antonio that will fit your needs the best based on your lifestyle, your future plans, and anything else that's important to you. There are tons and tons of videos here on YouTube that are all about different suburbs, communities, and neighborhoods that you can research, but those videos can also make the decision even more overwhelming for you. So the very best way to get to know which options actually fit what you're looking for is just to reach out to me so I can help you. The next big question that I get is, should I rent if I'm only going to be in San Antonio for a few years. Okay, I have some info to unpack for you here because this is a pretty common dilemma, and I have a few specific real life scenarios that I can share with you here too. Like I said, I help a lot of families that are PCSing to San Antonio, so this one comes up quite a bit. Okay, there are going to be a couple of different variables to consider here. The current status of the housing market in San Antonio is, of course, one of the biggest variables. If you're buying a home in a seller's market, meaning you're paying top dollar for your home, you face the possibility of not having enough equity built up after a few years to break even or make money if the market shifts or even if it just stays the same. We're not currently in a seller's market, but obviously we have no idea what the housing market will look like in a few years. So how can we make a decision based on that? I actually have two real life scenarios for you that I've helped my clients through that both had completely different outcomes. Scenario number one was a family that purchased a new construction home in a brand new community that was just starting out. They bought the home during a heavy seller's market, which there was very little inventory at that time, and this particular community was exclusive to one builder. These are important details when it comes to thinking about future resale value. After a year and a half, they decided that they wanted to live closer to their daughter's private school rather than having a shorter work commute, so they decided to move all the way across the city. Because the builder continued construction in that area, sales prices for brand new homes continued to increase. So when we listed their home, they were able to list at a competitive price for resale, still compete with the builder's now higher prices, and make a profit off of the equity they had built in that short time. It worked out great for them. Scenario number two was a family that relocated for a job offer here in San Antonio that also purchased a new construction home in a neighborhood that was already well established, but still had multiple builders building homes in the community. They also bought their home during the heavy seller's market with very little inventory. 2 years after buying, they wanted to sell their home and move to Austin for another job opportunity. The market was transitioning at that time, which would already make it a challenge to sell. The builder reacted to the transitioning market by slashing their prices on their brand new homes. So a brand new home with the exact same floor plan and features could then be purchased brand new for less than what these sellers had paid for their home just 2 years ago, which made it difficult for the homeowner to compete without losing money since they bought during a seller's market. After a while on the market, we weighed out their options and they decided to go ahead and lease the home to a tenant and wait to see if the market shifts or balances later. So this actually ended up working out for them, even though they didn't sell and it wasn't the outcome that they originally wanted, because now they have this investment home that continues to generate passive income for them while they live in Austin. However, they did have to prepare to become landlords and manage the property from another city, which of course came with a whole new set of challenges. Both of these scenarios had totally different outcomes, of course, but my point here is that whether or not you should rent or buy if you're in San Antonio for just a short amount of time really depends on a few key factors. Number one, the market conditions. Number two, the specific property that you're considering and the neighborhood that it's located in. Number three, your ability to adapt and change course if something unexpected happens. If you buy a home, you get to build equity, potentially profit from that equity, or even turn it into a rental property later. Renting, on the other hand, gives you more flexibility, but doesn't give you the opportunity to invest in a constantly growing market like San Antonio's. And we'll cover more specifics on pros and cons of renting and buying in just a bit. Should I rent while waiting for interest rates to drop? I'll just start this answer with timing the market rarely ever works. Predicting when interest rates will drop is nearly impossible. Even the experts can't do it with certainty. I see tons of people out there on social media trying to convince their audience that either the rates are definitely dropping soon or that the rates are definitely hiking even higher soon, but nobody really knows. I'm not in the mortgage industry, so I don't make those kind of predictions, but what I do know is this. While you're waiting for the perfect interest rate, you might miss out on the perfect home. Waiting for lower rates could mean that you're competing with more buyers and that you'll potentially pay a higher sales price. Renting isn't free, and rent prices in San Antonio are constantly rising. So whether your interest rate is 3% or 8%, just remember that the interest rate on renting is is 100%. A higher interest rate doesn't have to be a deal breaker. So if you work with a knowledgeable agent to negotiate other aspects of the deal, like sales price reductions, seller concessions, closing costs, or a rate buy down, you could still end up finding a really great deal on a home that you absolutely love. Buying a home is less about buying at the exact right moment and more about finding the right home for your budget and lifestyle when you're ready. You can always refinance later if it makes sense to do so, but you can't go back and recover the equity that you missed by waiting to buy. Just like with any huge decisions, there are pros and cons to renting and buying a home in San Antonio or anywhere. And I love doing pros and cons for everything. It really helps me balance things out in my head and think of things in a more organized way. So let's talk through some of those. The pros to renting instead of buying are a little more obvious. So let's go through some of those first. You have more flexibility to explore neighborhoods. Renting allows your family to get to know different neighborhoods before committing to just one. San Antonio has a variety of communities, and renting gives you the chance to test drive those different areas. Renting also typically requires less upfront costs compared to buying, so you don't have to worry about a large down payment, closing costs, or other fees associated with purchasing a home. This can be beneficial if you're still getting financially situated after a big move. There's less maintenance responsibility. As renters, your family won't have to worry about the cost or the time commitments that come with home maintenance repairs or unexpected things like AC issues or roof leaks. The landlord handles those, which can simplify your life while adjusting to a new city. It can definitely be an easier relocation process if you need to move again within a short time. If you anticipate that your move to San Antonio might not be long term, like if you're a military family or expect another job relocation in a few years, renting really gives you the flexibility to move again without the hassle of selling a home or becoming a landlord. The monthly costs while renting are predictable, at least within your lease term. Renting can help your family plan and budget more efficiently since you won't have to deal with unpredictable repair costs or fluctuating mortgage rates if your taxes or insurance go up. You'll know exactly what your rent is each month, which can help you manage expenses during your relocation. Renting also gives you the time to watch the San Antonio housing market and wait for the perfect home or the right time to buy. You don't have to rush into a purchase, and you can make a more informed decision once you're settled. So those are the positives of renting instead of buying when moving to San Antonio, which can be pretty easy to see when you're trying to make that decision. And those obvious pros can easily influence your decision if you don't think about all the cons, which you have to think a little harder to find. So here are some of what the cons would be to renting versus buying. Renting can be a source of instability for families in a few different ways. Landlords can choose not to renew your lease, which if you're not ready could force you to have to move at the end of your lease term, or maybe you decide that you want to rent in a different area at the end of your lease. This can be especially challenging for families with children who are already settled into schools and neighborhoods. Each time that you move, you'll likely be transferring them to a different school, which can obviously be disruptive for them. Renting usually means restrictions on making the home your own. You can't renovate, paint, or customize the property to suit your family's needs and lifestyle, which may be limiting if you're looking to create a permanent home environment or customize your home. When you rent, all of your monthly payments go toward your landlord's investment, not yours. You don't build equity in the property, and you also don't have anything to show for the money that you spent during your lease. You've essentially just put money towards your landlord's equity. It's also important to know that homeowners in the US often benefit from tax deduction for mortgage interest and property taxes. Renters, unfortunately, don't get those financial perks, which could help you save some money during tax season. As a renter, you're subject to the terms and conditions set by the landlord. Things like restrictions on pets, having limited control over when maintenance is done, even down to how long visitors are permitted to be on the property. So in the long run, renting may actually cost more than owning. As rent prices continue to rise in San Antonio, you could end up paying more in rent over a few few years than you would have with a mortgage payment that builds equity. So you may be thinking $2,500 for rent isn't too bad. But if you do the math, after 2 years of paying that rent, that's $60,000 that you've paid on your landlord's mortgage. After 5 years of renting, that's $150,000 that could have been used to build your own equity instead of your landlord's. I know that there are tons of questions that pop up for families that are moving to San Antonio, so make sure to leave them in the comments for me so I can answer them in my next walkthrough. Maybe we'll make this like a series. Anyway, here's the thing. It's only a good idea to buy a home in San Antonio if all of the pros outweigh the cons for you. It's not always the right situation, and sometimes it just makes more sense to rent. Not a lot of people in the real estate profession will tell you that. You're going to hear a lot of, it's always a better idea to buy, but it's really not always the best decision for every family. My advice is don't make this decision alone. Every family and every move is unique, and I'm here to help you weigh out the pros and the cons based on your goals, timelines, and circumstances. Don't forget to check out the description of this video for tons of resources to help you with your move to San Antonio, and check out this video next that has even more information about moving to San Antonio, Texas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next video.